Heavenly Father, Lord God, thank you so much for the opportunity to come together and have a conversation. Be in the midst of us. In Jesus' name, amen. Good morning and welcome to season 2 of What's the Message? I cannot believe it. But once again, I am still your host, Claudia Allen, and I am so excited to bring you a new season, new conversations. And we are starting it off with who I consider to be legends and amazing friends. And so today we have an awesome episode for you all. But I can't believe, I'm so out of the bag. It's been so long. I forgot. I am your host, Claudia Allen, and I am here with my co-host, the one and only, the commander-in-chief, the lady who gets it all done, the one and only journalist, lawyer, editor, her, Carmela Monk Crawford.
Listen, what's up, Claudia? I like the last one. If I could be her with the glasses and the guitar and the sound, that would be it. Her.
That's her.
That's
yes.
my alter ego. Her.
Yes.
Her. What's up, you all? Happy, not quite New Year, but hey, we're still in a pandemic. What is going on here?
Listen, there is some crazy stuff going on, Carmela, and it has been pretty bonkers since you guys have seen us last, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Carmela, white supremacists stormed the Capitol. And I mean, if we were live, we would have had 100 million things to say about that.
Yeah.
What were some of your feelings? You know, it was interesting. We actually had a meeting together the day of that event. What were you thinking and feeling when that happened?
Well, I was incredulous. I was incredulous to see people swarm across the face of the Capitol like a cancer.
Yeah.
And penetrating the halls. I don't view the seat of government as a sacred place, but I do view it as government and order. And I think the biggest thing for many people of color, Black people, and I will say this, I was on a session yesterday that was talking about the intersection of racism and the environmental crises. And on that session, there was a lawyer representing the First Nations, and she was out at a protest camp in Minneapolis, or I should say Minnesota. And she says, let's just juxtapose the idea of protesters at Standing Rock, where they brought in troops with guns and tanks now, and people were run over. They were assaulted and beaten and arrested for trespassing on our own land, as she said. Nobody died from the cops or the enforcement or anything like this, but the First Nations, she said, everybody here is on our land, and you're arresting us for trespassing at Standing Rock, but then you have these people swarming the Capitol with no enforcement, or they were directed to stand down, is what we're seeing now. And so, it's unbelievable to some people. I guess I shouldn't say it is unbelievable to me. I just want it to be highlighted over and over again, the difference in value systems, the difference in what we criminalize, and the difference in how we enforce the rules and the regulations and the laws of the society. That has to be said over and over again.
Powerful. Wow. So a couple weeks later, then, we come to the inauguration and we see a transition of power. And what were your thoughts and feelings on that? I know, I remember you texting me and saying, man, if we were having a show this week, there would be so much to talk about.
Oh my goodness. Can you just see, first of all, it's the color commentary, I think, was just as meaningful in some ways, because people have been so inundated. And I think the psychological burden that we have been carrying with the level of rhetoric for so long, the breath of fresh air that happened when we saw Michelle Obama breeze down those stairs with her husband, the first marriage in chief, let's put it that way. We see this family enter the scene, and she embodied, and I'm not holding her up as some superhuman person, but the person who embodies the thought, when they go low, we go high. And we saw all those beautiful memes where she's looking at Kamala Harris, the first African-American and Southeast Asian vice president, her heritage. And the meme is showing Michelle Obama, hey, girl, I see you. I see what you're doing. We're proud of you. We stand behind you. Everything about that was freeing. And then to see Amanda Gorman come up there and just to break it down. I was back at home. Yes, I hear you. Because that moment, I said, and I put that on my Facebook, I have never been so happy. I'm not necessarily a patriotic person, but to see red, white, and blue bunting that day and hear the military band, I was there for it, because it meant that we're still here. Yes. We get to live to see another day. Because 2 weeks before, then who knew what would have happened?
Absolutely. Well, today is an important day, because today, obviously, we're starting season 2, but today is also the first show, and it's Black History Month. Okay. And I really am excited to bring our guests in, because I feel, are going to add just some awesome perspective, even to, I just want to start off light and get their perspectives on some of these couples from the inauguration. Yes. And so I am so excited to introduce to you our first couple guests, Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver. They are the directors of the Department of Family Ministries for the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and have held that position since 2010. Dr. Oliver is a licensed clinical professional counselor and a certified family life educator by the National Council on Family Relations. He holds a Miss Elaine Oliver is a licensed clinical counselor. She holds a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, counseling psychology, and higher and adult education, along with a bachelor's in business administration and accounting. Miss Elaine also has completed her coursework for a PhD in educational psychology. Dr. Willie Oliver is an ordained minister, pastoral counselor, family sociologist, and a certified family life educator by the National Council on Family Relations. He holds a PhD in sociology with concentrations in gender and family and social stratification, master's degrees in religion and in sociology, and a BA in theology. He is an adjunct professor of family ministries at the Seventh-day Adventist Theological Seminary at Andrews University, as well as an adjunct professor of marriage and family at the Adventist University of Africa. Dr. Oliver is the former director of family ministries for the NAD, the Atlantic Union College, and the Greater New York Conference. He also served as a lead pastor in New York City and currently serves as a volunteer pastor for families at his local church in Washington, D.C. But Dr. Willie and Elaine Oliver have also been longtime relationship columnists and editors here at Message for over 25 years. And so it is truly an honor and a privilege to welcome them back to the podcast. Clap it up for them as you sit in your home watching this here show.
Yeah, indeed.
Also want to give them a shout out as well. Carmela, if you could show the people, the Olivers have a brand new book out. Show the saints.
Absolutely. Can you see? Look how beautiful this is. Connected.
Go ahead, Carmela.
Connected, devotional readings for an intimate marriage. I got mine. And what I need to do is send it back so I can get a nice little inscription right there. That's what I want. We love you, Carmela and Dave. That's what I want right there. So anyway, but thank you for this beautiful devotional. Can we start there, or were you going to introduce our next guest? I didn't know.
I want to introduce our next guest. Our next guests are friends of mine. They are Dr. John and April Nixon, and they are content creators who host a relationship podcast on YouTube called Just John and April. They're relationship coaches who have been married to each other for 20 years this year. Together, they have 2 teenage children and serve as a pastor and teacher, respectively. It is their firm belief that relationships don't have to be miserable if couples work smarter and not harder in their marriages. So welcome to the podcast, my friend, the YouTubers, John and April Nixon.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, and why do you say they're my friends? Like they're only your friends. I caught that. This is a new season. Okay, look, there are friends too. And look, the Olivers are like mine too.
They can be y'all's friends. I was just doing the introduction. I'm not holding no boundaries or restrictions. They can have friends with whoever they want. I'm just saying, if I'm introducing them, I want the peoples to know they my friends. That's all I'm saying.
Welcome, my friend.
Okay. We'll take
I think it's
that.
important. I think it's important for us to show ours as well. We got our copy,
Yeah.
and ours is not signed either. We need this to be signed. You know what I'm saying? So let's get on that.
I love this. It's a beautiful book, a beautiful looking book, and I just got mine, and I intend to crack that open. And so there's 2 things I want to ask you about. I want to start there in the dedication. You start by dedicating this to your 2 adult children, Jessica and Julian. Did I say their names correctly? Jessica and Julian.
Yeah.
And you talked about how the noblest gift that we can give you is our unwavering love for God and for each other. And that says a lot right there. And I would love for you to unpack that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can I tell a story to begin with?
Of course.
Absolutely.
So a few years ago, we were traveling on a work assignment in Budapest at Hungary. And it was the event was happening around the time of our son's birthday. And our daughter is married, but our son is single. And so we knew it was his birthday. And so we said, hey, you know what? We hate to miss your birthday, but we're going to be in Hungary. So do you want to join us for your birthday? And of course, he said yes. Well, he didn't have to say yes because he's an adult. But he did. And he joined us. On the day of his birthday, he chose a restaurant, which was very expensive, by the way. But and then
he knew he wasn't paying.
And then they had like these small, it was one of those restaurants that it's called Noble. Is that the name of it? Are you familiar with
Noble.
it? They have like really tiny entrees. But anyway, but it was a nice moment for him. And we congratulated him. He was turning, I forget what age it was. I wouldn't say it anyway. And then he thanked us. And he sat there and he said, I just want to thank you guys for staying married.
Wow.
And that just, that melted me, because we have always committed to staying married, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something that we took very seriously. But one of the things that we were committed to is to not just staying married unhappily, but being in a happy and a satisfying marriage. And as John and April said, as you said in their introduction, that it's not that couples need to work harder, they just need to work smarter. Mm-hmm. And so that is what we meant, is that marriage is that significant to us. And this could go on for like a whole hour, but it was a gift also that we wanted to give to our children of staying married.
The only portion I want to add to that story is that we could not stay married without the power of God and our commitment to God and the Spirit of God being in us. Mm-hmm. And that closes the whole concept of what our dedication is. It is because we love God, it's because God is in us, we're able to do this. And this is a gift and a legacy for you.
Mm-hmm.
But can I add something else, not to monopolize this, but because we're talking about Black marriage in particular.
Okay.
And so I often like to share with people that I grew up in a home with a single mother and didn't know my father for most of my life. And so I decided that if I did get married, and this is just me personally, that I wanted it to be for life. Right? Because it was important for me, and I say this to my children, and they're adults, they'll have to decide how they want to work it out. But for us, we're very committed also to this legacy. The whole notion of passing on a healthy legacy, if a spiritual legacy, but also a marriage legacy. And of course, the two for us go hand in hand because marriage is designed by God. Like marriage is a God thing. I know that contemporary society thinks they made it up, but marriage was designed by God. So that was so important to us. And now to fast forward to our daughter, on the day that she got married, she said to me, she said, "Mom, we fixed the tree." You know what that means? So for her, growing up, I often said to her, the family tree has some broken branches here. And I'm trying to fix that tree. And I'm hoping that you guys can help me fix this tree as we pass on this legacy. And she looks at me, and I thought she had forgotten it. And she says, "I'm just helping you fix the tree, Mom."
Oh.
So
that is so powerful. Wow. I really appreciate that. I'll be transparent. My parents got divorced after 30 years of marriage. And so I truly value and appreciate just what you're saying, because I think that people truly underestimate how important it is, or how beautiful it is to be able to pass on to your children, not just a long lasting marriage, but a happy and long lasting marriage. And man, just hearing, Jessica say that, like, "Mom, I'm helping you repair this tree, fix this tree," man, that is amazing. This thought came to my mind while you were talking, Miss Elaine. I'm wondering, particularly around that of Black love, I keep hearing that Black women in particular, the higher up they go, the more successful they become, then particularly the more degrees they have, then the less attractive they become, or the more unmarriable, that's so not a word, but y'all know, they become. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, actually, that is a sociological reality, and that is a part of the research. You find it in the literature that, first of all, may I say that African Americans have the lowest marriage rate and the highest divorce rate in our country, and we've had that for the last 50 years. We have not changed that. And when it comes to women, African American women, more so than any other ethnic group in the United States, the more education you have, the less likely you are to become married. Now, other women, white women, other women, other ethnicities, if they're more educated, they are more attractive. And in fact, they tend to marry at higher rates, but not so with African American women, for whatever reason. And a lot of it has to do with the legacy of slavery and the legacy of racism and Jim Crow and all this inequality that especially African American men have experienced. Because you remember, even during Reconstruction and after Jim Crow came in and there was the migration north, African American women were able to find employment, but not African American men. They were often relegated to menial, and while we had great immigration from Europe at the time, they had all kinds of unions that were keeping out African American men from getting decent jobs. So this has always been something that has militated against African American marriage, even though it wasn't so all the time. Let me just interject right here. For those who are saying, well, slavery, because of slavery, we haven't had good marriages. Actually, that's not true. Here's what we do know. That even in slavery, most African American families try to keep their families together. We know that the masters often raped our women, and African American men felt emasculated because we didn't have any power or control over the situation. But let me tell you what happened as soon as emancipation took place. that African Americans were looking for kinfolk, they were looking for family members, and they lined up for hours to legalize their marriage, since slaves were not allowed to marry legally. So we have a legacy of marriage in the African American community. We just need to regain it. And because African American men have been marginalized and often have not been able to climb that socioeconomic ladder as quickly, the more education African American women have, the less attractive our African American men are, since so many of them are incarcerated and so many of them are unemployed, that has mitigated where successful marriages are. That's just the sociological perspective on marriage, and especially African American marriage.
Well, as we come at this point, number one, everything you just set up, Dr. Oliver, has me feeling that this conversation is not skimming the surface when we're addressing or looking at some of our issues, particularly within the Black community. When you talk about legacy, when you talk about marriages, I'm going to bring in this couple, John and April Nixon, because part of the reason why we're doing this today, everybody, is the fact that Dr. Willie and Mrs. Elaine Oliver, these relationship experts that have been with Message for more than 20 years, writing our relationship column, they're passing the torch.
We are.
We were joking before we came on. They said, Moses had to, nobody has to die here. But what they said is, we want to pass this torch. And so now we're passing the torch, and they're the ones that are saying we're passing this torch to John and April Nixon, this couple who is also doing relationship ministry. So, and I'm going to ask both of you, given the backdrop that we just painted, what does it take to, number one, find good, healthy relationship mentors? What are the things that we're looking for first? Then I'll come back with some other questions on that.
Are you asking the Olivers this, or are you asking April and I this?
You can jump right in, because that's where we are right now, okay?
It's interesting because April and I are very fortunate in being able to have close connections with people who have good marriages. And I think that's been probably the most impactful aspect of what we have gotten out of our, we read stuff, we see articles, we read books, all that kind of stuff. But none of that stuff really prepares you for the intricacies of marriage. There are things that a book will tell you that don't always connect with what happens in real life. And it's not until you see that actually happening in real life, and then see the encouragement that you can receive from someone going through an issue and resolving it. So April and I both have parents who are still married to each other, that really love each other, and our parents like each other too, and that's been a real. The Olivers just talking about legacy that you pass down. I would say that's probably, of the things that I've learned from my parents, that's probably their most important legacy. I don't know if they would say that, but I think I would, as I look back at them, is arguing sometimes in front of us and allowing us to see it and then resolving it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Also in front of us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, not necessarily where they called us to the room and said, hey, come watch this argument. But, if there was a disagreement or something going on, our parents didn't shield us from that. And I think that was a very important aspect of us growing up, being able to say, you can have issues in your relationship and still get through them and stay married and all of that. So I don't know where you find the mentors at. I know we're trying to be that. I know the Olivers are that. And there are people like us all over the place who are willing to share the things we've gone through. It's one of the reasons why we have set up our ministry to be so transparent. We feel like we help people by showing them that we have actual issues and that we still like each other, even though we have issues, and that we can get through them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if there's a list of somewhere you can find mentors, but we can help you with that. There are people we know and people we can connect you with. And I think the Olivers are that way too. Okay, so I just need to give some full disclosure here. We've known the Olivers for a long time.
They're on that list of mentors for us.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that when they talk about, Jessica and Julian and all that kind of stuff.
Wife and a mother. And I remember when we met and I was kind of fussing a little bit about something my husband wasn't doing. And
Who, me?
and she heard me, it's something, I think it was at a lunch, it was like at a potluck, and she pulled me aside and she's like, you need to be careful how you talk, because while and you know how your mom is, like she's very careful,
very blunt.
And she said, when you talk to people, you need to talk to godly people. Make sure you're talking to godly people. And she became that person for me in my early marriage. As a godly woman who's not going to say to you, like, yeah, that dog, you got to do this. She's like, Elaine, are you praying? Did you get on your knees? Like, did you pray for yourself?
Yeah.
Did you pray about yourself?
Right.
Giovanna should be here. But just going back to what John is saying about Jessica and Julian. So now people who are listening, be careful about this. But John and his brother actually helped us, Paul, babysit our kids. So we go way back. So when he says Jessica and Julian, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, man, they were little kids, man.
And I will say this, that we didn't usually trust guys to take care of our daughter, but these guys were so honest and so sweet, and we could trust our children with them. And our daughter grew up just having such great respect for John and Paul. And when John left for college, he knew that our kids were going to miss him because he had such a presence in their lives. And when he came home, this is the part that I love this story. When he came home at Christmas, he had met April. And he was so excited about this April. And he came home, they came over to our house, and he brought a picture of April to share with Jessica, because he knew she had kind of like a little girl crush on him. Jessica's going to kill me if she's hearing this, right? And he said, Jessica, I met a girl. This is the kind of guy he was. He said, I met a girl and I'm going to marry her. And
freshman in college.
And freshman in college. And we're all like, yeah, you need to live a little. But here they are 20 years later. And he gave Jessica a picture of April, and he said, he asked her, what do you think about her? And she said, well, do you like her? And he said, yeah, I like her a lot. And she said, well, if you like her, I like her too. And she put this picture on her bulletin board.
Yeah, I remember.
I was cleaning out the attic a few months ago. This picture of April sitting on her dorm room bed. And you pretty much have your hair the same way. And it's an adorable picture. She looks exactly the same, like she has not aged a day. And beautiful picture. And Jessica had this picture on her bulletin board. Like it's still I finally took it off and I put it in some file somewhere, but I threw away the bulletin board. But that's how far back we go. But I'm saying all that to say that we have been watching the Nixons, these younger Nixons, for a long time, and watching their marriage and their commitment to marriage as a young couple. They survived against all odds. I mean, getting married right out of college. I'm telling your story.
Yeah, we were super young.
It was very young. And it's a lot of couples statistically do not survive. So what he is saying when he says, like, finding mentors, finding godly people, but also being committed, like to sticking it out and working through your issues is just so critical. And this is what couples are challenged with today, is that most of us go into marriage thinking that there aren't supposed to be problems. That it's just like at the first sign of any pain, I'm out. This is not meant to be.
I just wanted to add that for me, my mentors were my parents. My parents were married until my dad died, and my mother never remarried, and she just died 3 years ago. So I grew up with that legacy, and my grandparents were married, and their parents were married. So I come from a long line of married Black people. And we had these conversations with my dad when I was a kid. In fact, when I was a kid in grade school, I would say to him, you know, if the church had stronger marriages, we would have stronger families. We would have a stronger church. We could preach the gospel with power and joy and help hasten the coming of Jesus Christ. And all of this is related to marriage. And so I grew up with that, always knowing that I was going to get married and I was going to have a successful marriage, because a marriage is a decision, and having a successful marriage is a decision. You know, everybody has problems, and I always say, we always say, there are no perfect marriages because there are no perfect people. And by the way, thank you for being transparent, Claudia, about the divorce of your parents. But I want you to know, for those of you who are out there thinking your kids are grown now and you can now split, hey, it doesn't matter how old you are. If your parents divorce, it affects your marriage. It affects your life. You feel disconnected. You feel something is happening. So these are things that we have to deal with. So I'm just saying to all those people out there who are struggling, who are saying, you know, I can't do this anymore. Look, we're not saying stay in a bad marriage. We're saying fix it. And it's fixing it.
I love that.
Make it a good marriage.
Dear Henry.
Can I ask you guys, and I want really all four of you to speak to this. Do you guys feel as though there are specific problems that are unique to Black marriages that don't show up in other marriages? I get totally hear what you're saying. Every marriage has problems. Everybody's gonna have issues. But are there things that maybe make Black marriages harder to stay together than others? And what are those factors that make Black marriage difficult?
I'll say one thing from a sociological perspective, and that is the pressure of slavery, the pressure of inequality, the pressure of discrimination. Black men have more heart attacks than anybody else in society because we have so much pressure. You know, it doesn't matter how many degrees you have. That's why we are often better dressed than everybody else, because we want people to know that, you know what, we went to school, we have degrees. And look, if you are in sweats and you are out there, they just assume that you know nothing. And that is pressure. That is pressure. And then you bring that pressure home, and then every marriage is going to have little squabbles and little disagreements, but that pressure explodes when you're at home. And that is one of the biggest issues in Black marriage.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I want to add this, and Carmela and I had a long conversation about this one day at the beginning of the pandemic, and just talking about, actually it was after the George Floyd situation. And we were just talking about these pressures that Black men have to encounter every day when you go outside. And Willie mentioned it also, the fact that society is doing something very interesting right now, right? So we have a way of, we feel a certain level of comfort with Black women. And in a way, what we do, and I'm sure, Claudia, you can really put some nice intellectual spin on this. What we do is we undermine Black men many times, right? We walk into a room and we downplay the Black man and we upplay the Black women. I mean, we're not really trying to upplay anybody, but it's a way of denigrating Black men. And it's a very subtle microaggression, right? But that's that's the same thing.
Right. Sometimes it's a macro.
Microaggressions are subtle. Macro and sometimes it is macro. And I'm sure, April, you've experienced it. And Carmela, all of you may have experienced it, where there's a discomfort with the power of our Black men, especially if they're somewhat, you know, they carry themselves well. And so we have a way of very cheekily putting them down. So I think that plays into the marriage relationship sometimes. And if we're not careful about it as Black women, because of the regular marriage challenges, we buy into it. And then it emasculates our men even more. So I think that's where it's a very subtle thing. I don't know that there is research studies on this, but I see it play out regularly. And then, of course, the whole notion of Black women being gaining degrees at higher levels than Black men. And then we are out there saying what kind of man we're looking for, and we disregard certain men, certain Black men in our society. Or if we marry them, we put them down in the marriage. There are certain expectations that we have of them that really may not even contribute to a good marriage. There's no research that says that your income is going to make you happy. Yes, if you have money to pay your rent and your mortgage and all of that.
Buy food, transportation.
But really what we know that the real issues in marriage are how we communicate with each other, how we treat each other, how we resolve conflict. Those are the things that are really going to determine the level of satisfaction in our marriage.
Wow, that's so great. Right before you guys, John and April, come in with your thoughts, just adding to what you were saying, Miss Elaine, there's a guy, I'm not promoting him because he's a little problematic, but there's a guy named Kevin Samuels on YouTube, and he is an image consultant, and he considers himself to be this guru on relationships, and he gives Black women advice. And basically what he's saying is, because Black women, like the Olivers were telling us before, are the more educated they become, the less desirable they become. He believes that part of that that lack of desirability on the part of Black men is intimately attached to our speech and how we speak to Black men, how we treat Black men, the emasculating aspect. And so Black men basically say, hey, I don't want to be treated like that. You're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to disrespect me. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to marry Becky. I'm going to go over here. Or I'm going to marry, as he says, Marisol. What he says? Marisol, Maria, and Emily. and so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to marry them. And basically he's saying some of the things I disagree with, because he does say, he feels like some Black women big themselves up more than they should. So it's like, you think you're too pretty, or you think you're what have you. But I think that one small aspect is a hard pill to swallow, but I think it is something that maybe Black women should potentially consider in how is it that we speak to our Black men, because I'm not sure other women speak to their men in the same way that we do. And I think that we have given it a cultural term of jesting and jousting, and we go in the dozens. We try to come up with cultural means to justify how we show up towards one another, and we don't want to take the onus or the responsibility for the emotional impact that is having on people. Mm-hmm. John and April.
Well, I was going to say, and the Olivers can tell me if this is correct, but it just seems like from our experience that Black men do not feel comfortable with therapy.
Or anything that looks like therapy.
Yeah. Talking to somebody about your problems. Mm-hmm. We always get pushback from the Black man, in the relationship. And I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if it's the idea that, we can handle this ourselves. I got this. I think it comes from a basic distrust of outsiders. Mm-hmm.
And that if somebody on the outside starts to talk to me about something, then it's possible that I could lose what little power I have. Because I don't have power anywhere, really.
Right.
Honestly.
Right.
And now I'm going to relinquish the power in my relationship, this sacred place, to somebody else. No way.
Yeah.
And so what April and I have found is that it's really hard because we're not therapists. We're really just marriage coaches. Mm-hmm. And we often have to change the name of what we're doing or find ways to describe it that would appeal to a man.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we tend to be pretty, I'm a Black man, and of course I fit into the same category. I tend to be pretty skeptical about someone from the outside telling me something about my relationship. We do have our people.
Yeah.
But the list ain't big, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want just anybody coming in and telling me, because like I just said, there's a little bit of skepticism there. I think that's something that's probably germane to Black marriages that maybe other marriages don't have to deal with.
And, I want to validate what April said. She's not wrong. And both of you said it very well. But I want to give you a perspective from the other side. And the other side is that just because I'm paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not after me. And that
Right.
Yes, that's it.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That has been the experience of Black men. Wow. So in sociology, we call it blaming the victim. So we have to be careful here, because Black men have endured a lot in these Americas. We've endured a lot. And because we've endured a lot, we're skeptical. It's the reason we're having such low levels of vaccination for COVID among people of color, especially Black people, especially Black men, because we've been done in the past. So it's a psychological reality. If you have hurt me in the past, I'm going to be paranoid about being hurt again. I want to, however, validate what April said and say to my Black brothers, hey, if you're having some brokenness, don't be afraid to have someone help you fix it. Because if you get that fix, you will more likely have a successful relationship with your mate. Yes. So I'm trying to be careful and trying to be balanced here and saying, hey, there's a reason why they don't want to go to anyone, because the man has always done us in. I'm saying, let's help ourselves and recognize that we can fix this. It doesn't have to remain broken. When I was the director of the North American Division Family Ministries, Single Adult Ministries is also under that. And we had a big convention once in Disney, in Orlando. And Chaplain Black, Dr. Black was our main speaker. And he was speaking to young adults as to what they can do to move themselves to another level. He said, I grew up in Baltimore, he said, and we used to have names for our homies, and if someone got into a fight and their teeth got knocked out or what have you, that teeth would be out for the rest of his life. He said, well, it doesn't have to be, we have technology now. You can do something about that.
Yeah.
And I knew personally many young adults who did something about it when they got home. And so I'm saying, hey, yes, we're broken. And that's all of us. And not that women from other races don't speak to their men that way, but they don't have the oppression that Black men have had. So they don't respond the same way. If we have not been oppressed that way, then you say something to me, I say something back to you. We just go on our way. But for Black men, we are already wounded. So when you say that to us, it goes to a place where sometimes we just can't come back. It's like a body blow. Like if you're boxing and you got that body blow and you're down for the count. And I'm saying to my brothers, don't go down. Don't go down. That's why we said God and our commitment, because God has always been our helper. That's why those slaves loved it, even in the early Adventist church. That's why so many slaves became Adventists, because of our emancipation message. That message is in Jesus. There's freedom in Jesus. And I'm saying, let's not just hold on to the pains, to the stripes of our race and the racism that we've endured. Jesus can help us transcend that. And so we need to be more spiritual. We need to connect with a God that's powerful and can raise us up, so that we can be the kind of men that we need to be. And by the way, we don't need to be professional. I want to say this right now. We have a lot of good Black men that are carpenters and plumbers and what have you, make good money and can make a woman happy. You don't have to be a lawyer or a PhD or a minister or a dentist or an engineer.
Yes.
So let's value our Black men, but let's also be aware of what they're dealing with, and let's be, as the Bible says, of the Holy Spirit, a paraclete, someone next to you, someone who loves you, someone who is encouraging you. If we could just encourage each other, we could have the kind of marriages that God wants us to have. Let's not allow Satan.
Who's going to play? Somebody needs to play and then pass the plate. We need something. You know what I'm saying?
Pass the plate.
Doors are open.
Open the door, man. So I wanted to add something real quick, Carmela, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, April and I have noticed something in our circumstance because most of the couples we deal with now are millennial or younger, probably 90% now.
Yeah.
And what we're noticing is that a lot of the Black millennial men that we encounter are much more open to these kinds of things. And it's an encouragement to us to see the I don't know how it happened, but there are shackles that are being and bonds that are being set free clearly.
Yeah.
And the mindset is different. And so we are noticing with the younger couples that we deal with, they're much more open to therapy and advice
and sharing feelings.
Yes, and transparency.
Knowing how to communicate
Yes,
that.
yes, all those things. So it's a very encouraging thing to see. So I'm glad that we do see some progress in that area as we deal with some of our younger couples.
Yeah. Thanks to the podcasts that are out there, and thanks to John and April, because it makes people feel a little less defensive. And that there are other people that are dealing with these issues. So one of the things that we often say is that education can be just as powerful, if not more powerful than therapy. So when you hear John and April say that what they do is not therapy, that is very important, because when people feel more comfortable going to a life coach than to a therapist, even though the two sometimes are very closely intertwined,
right?
Learning skills is really more powerful at the end of the day. You know, oftentimes, even when I do therapy with a couple, I will say, we're going to touch a little bit on some of your past traumas, but it's not even so much the past traumas that are impacting your marriage per se. It's the manifestation of how you deal with that. So if you can learn that, you know, in your family of origin, your father used to yell every time he walked into the house. Why is all of this stuff here? Why are there crumbs on the table? Why is all of that? And it irritated you to no end. Why would you continue to do it in your home? Just stop. You know, like, you didn't like it. You think your kids now are gonna like it?
Right.
You know, why would you, like, you can learn how to change that behavior. You don't have to go through 10 years of therapy to know that this is not a good thing, right? So education and learning skills is oftentimes just as powerful. I'm not saying you shouldn't deal with some of your baggage, but you could stop today and have a better marriage just by removing some of the crap. Sorry.
That's a good word.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
There's some other words that, you know, say it better even, you know, but you know, I'm glad you stopped me, John Nixon, because I was going to go a place that maybe was a little personal, and I don't feel like being that transparent.
I'm mad I stopped you now.
I'm glad you stopped me. But here's what I'm thinking, you know, in your new column, the Nixons, and I will say this to our watching friends, we need a new name for their column. We're still in the middle. And I guess I want something that kind of captures the complexity of trying to maintain a satisfying relationship right now. You all have the distinction of coming on board in the middle of a pandemic. And, you know, there's no, you know, I have a good close group of friends, and I've been saying to them, you watch. I believe matchmakers are going to come back in style. And I believe we're going to get back to the point where people at the church are going to depend on people like me to have dinner and have sister this person and brother this person and everybody around the table so people can meet organically and have a nice time and hit it off. You watch, okay? That mark my words. But my question, and I think to all of you, is this: given what you're saying, because what you said, Dr. Oliver, to me, I guess, calls for both a recognition of the fragility that we all have, and not just a recognition on my part as a woman, but the recognition on the part of a man of the fragility and anybody that I'm reaching out to. And I think we as Black people, we're good at putting on a good, strong face and carriage. I'm strong. You know what I mean? And I never would think that my brothers are hurting or are maybe not hurting, but would be as sensitive and vulnerable in spots. So given this new revelation for me, okay, maybe not other people, how do you connect, especially over some kind of electronic thing? Are you telling people this is who I am? I mean, what are the dynamics that lend to a transparent and even exchange that can set your relationship up going forward? I know that was very ultra complex, but go ahead.
No, it's not. And Claudia, again, she said it earlier, this facade, let's just start with us as Black women. You know, we're proud of what we've accomplished. You know, as little Black girls, our moms told us, you know, you can be anything you want to be, right? Because moms wanted to build us up, because our mothers, like for me, I grew up at the dawn of the feminist movement, right? And so I wanted to be sure that I empowered my daughter, you know, and I watched my grandmother and my mother work hard. They were not educated women, but they were high on education. And so we're very proud of what we've accomplished. And
good proud.
Good proud.
Right.
And we should be. And we should be. But that also comes with what you're saying, Carmela, this strong face, we are strong Black women. Again, I'm going to out Jessica a little bit, because I used to tell her, please stop telling people that you date, that you come from a long line of strong Black women. I said, you're scaring people, you know?
Wow, I never thought about that.
And so that connotation is kind of intimidating, right? What does that mean? It's this face set in stone. It's like, I can be me all by myself. This whole notion of
I don't need anyone.
I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone. I can do this. And so we come into this relationship with, first of all, okay, we need a lot of time.
We don't have the time. Can I just say this?
Wait.
Every relationship needs vulnerability. And if you come onto the relationship saying, I come from a long line of strong Black women, you're intimidating the other person, and we are all broken. So let's bring down the facade. If we can just bring down the facade, so that we can meet. But I want to be careful
that I don't say that women have to diminish themselves.
They don't.
You know,
they don't.
You don't have to be less than, but you need to understand that to be in relationship, it's two of you. It's not just you. And men need to understand that too. So imagine if we both go in and we're both with these facades, how will we ever experience intimacy?
Not possible.
So, and maybe John and April are seeing this with these younger couples, where basically now we're talking about contracts. It's like, I'm this and we're merging this and it looks good, but we're not touching the heart. And so when heart issues emerge, nobody knows how to deal with it. So
that's true.
It's we have to just pay attention and allow ourselves to be real. No, you're not going to do it on the first date, but maybe on the first date you do say a little something about yourself that's beyond just what you've acquired and what you've accomplished. How do you feel about something? You know, what are your thoughts about this, what happened to George Floyd? You know, talk about your feelings as opposed to your degrees and how much is in your bank account.
I see.
Ooh, is that what people are talking about on their first dates now?
I don't
Probably.
know.
I don't know.
You know what they talk about, but they're not talking about life.
Yeah, it's not necessarily first date, but there are most certainly conversations, credit score, what do you do?
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
That's important information. We don't have a problem with that at all. But I think I did hear something else in your question, Carmela. Maybe I didn't hear this, but it sounded like you were also talking about the complexities of trying to date people online and using electronics and things like that. So what we tell people is, remember that the device is simply a vehicle, and that everything else about relationship is exactly the same as it always was. It's similar, and people can think of it this way. It's similar to being in a long distance relationship, except you can actually see the person now on your phone. When April and I were dating, we were at Oakwood together, but then during the summer times, probably early on, because actually once we got into the Aeolians, we were in the summer choir, so we're still together all the time. But let's say my sophomore year or something like that, I go home for the break, she goes home for the break. And during that 3-month period that we're away from each other, we're in a long distance relationship. The way that you relate to one another during that time is on the phone. Back in the day, maybe letters. Sorry to date ourselves. Things like that. But the things that worked in relationship were the same. It wasn't any different. It was just the vehicle, the thing that allowed us to connect was different. And I think it's the same in this situation. People are meeting for the first time electronically, but especially younger people, they're so much more comfortable with that these days. It's really not a big deal. It's not very foreign to them.
And I want to say that I noticed that with this, I guess, new way of dating, I think communication is heightened.
I agree.
Because you have to talk. Like, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You're not just sitting in front of a movie or, distracted by the activity you're doing. You actually have to communicate back and forth. You have to talk and you have to have conversation. And so I see it as it's a positive. But one thing I've noticed though is, first of all, a lot of couples are meeting online.
Yeah.
They're getting married. Okay.
Right. And then they come to us and they want counseling and we're like, how'd y'all meet? Online. Most of the time.
Yeah.
And they, they seem like they are great together, great couples. The thing that they're afraid of is once they move from this long distance relationship and they are then in person
physically
every day, they show anxiety about that every time. And so we try to help them get themselves ready for that, because there is a difference.
It's definitely different.
Because
no
you have to deal
it.
with personal habits and things that you haven't seen and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of try to get them to anticipate that part coming up.
But it was the same with us, except lower level.
Isn't it true that dating online, though, just like we have seen the social media phenomenon, expects and requires a certain level of preparation and presentation that you don't see on a day-to-day basis?
Yes,
I'm just reading one article about a young lady who found herself back out there again, and she's looking at herself online while she's in conversation with her new prospected or intended, and she's like, I need lip injections because I do not, you know what I'm saying? She's like, the way I look, it is everything is riding on this little box in which he can see me. He can even see the rest of my body. But
I'm gonna be honest with you, that you are right about that. You're right about that. But what I will say is, what we've noticed is they're coming on when they can come on, and they come on looking like whatever. Like they're not, seriously, like they are, because they're more comfortable with this, because this is the way they've grown up. It's always been, we didn't have Facebook and all that, Instagram and, FaceTime when we were in college. So it's like wherever they are, they just get on however they look. I don't think that's as much. I agree with you, but I was going to say something earlier from what you said. Man, see, this is where my brain is. I can't remember what I was going to say, but maybe it'll come back to me.
So here's the thing. I personally feel like the comfort level of young adults with technology is such and so second nature that what April said is true. I think we're much more, and those older than us are much more preoccupied with how we're going to look online than probably the younger ones are.
Yeah. And what you said earlier made me think about the fact that one thing I think is an issue about the online thing is a lot of couples want pre-engagement counseling because there's this big to do once you get engaged. Everything is on social media now. The huge engagement, the proposal, this whole thing. And so it's like, once we get all that on there, we can't back out now. We have to go through.
There has been a direct correlation for us. We've been counseling couples for 20 years, right? So when we first started counseling, that was the year 2000. I would say around 2013 or so, we started getting this huge influx of couples that wanted to have pre-engagement counseling. Now, they always wanted premarital counseling before that. So by the time they came to us, they were already engaged. But now
more than ever.
Yeah.
They haven't even proposed.
No one comes to us for premarital counseling. No, they want pre-engagement counseling.
Yeah.
And we think this is part of the reason. I think your engagement is so public. It's, you put it on social media, everybody knows about it. So to have to back out of an engagement is so embarrassing. I want to make sure that before I get engaged, that I'm doing the right thing. So we've had to adjust our curriculum a little bit. There was some pushback at first. We were kind of like, maybe we shouldn't do this because maybe they're not committed enough. And then we started realizing, no, this is where people are now, and they have a legitimate reason for it. We need to meet them where they are. So we've adjusted, and that's one of the complexities of relationships.
And it's actually been a positive because some decide
this ain't for us.
We're not going to get engaged.
Or we should wait.
Go there.
Or we should wait. We're not ready. And we've had to tell couples. We have to tell them sometimes, hey, y'all ain't ready. Y'all need to fix this first before you do it.
It's probably because we've been saying for the last 20 years that people need to do pre-engagement counseling.
It was y'all the ones.
It was you guys.
So it's obviously been working.
Oh, it is working because that's most of our couples is pre-engagement.
Yep.
Once couples get engaged, it's hard to speak to them.
Yes.
So it used to be that once they have that church and they have that date, forget it. Like there's nothing you can say to them.
They don't listen.
Yeah.
My last statement here about this podcast, and that is the reason we're having this transition is because we need a younger couple to speak to younger couples so that we can have a strong foundation and the future could be brighter.
It's legacy.
Okay, so no one asked us to leave. We said it was time for us to leave, and we needed someone younger because we need to invest in the younger generation, and it's easier for the Nixons as a younger couple to relate to those millennials than the Olivers. Despite our knowledge, we need
the same. They speak the language.
Well, we need new wine, and we need new receptacles of that wine. Okay, you can't put new wine in old receptacles. We need new wine. We need new receptacles, and the new wine isn't different values. It's just packaged differently, and it's time for a new package. And our prayers are with the Nixons that God will use them in a powerful way to influence the next generation of marriages in the African American church and beyond, not only in the United States, but anywhere where people listen. And we're praying and we're rooting and we're bullish on the Nixons.
That's right.
Thank you guys for your support.
So much.
And we're standing on your shoulders, man.
Yes.
This is quite an honor. When you suggested it and when Carmela asked about it, we really gave it some thought because we felt like you guys have really big shoes to fill. And we didn't take it lightly. We think that not only your knowledge and your experience and your own relationship, all of those things made it a little bit intimidating, to be honest with you. And we wondered, why are they even talking? Why do they want us to do this? But your encouragement and your support and the fact that every text we have sent you since then you have answered. That's how we know we can really do this.
That's the way it's going to be. So just be ready for that.
So thank you guys. You guys were there from the very beginning. We didn't tell that part of the story, but we had a list of people that we went to ask them advice about whether or not we should get married once we decided we wanted to do it. And Willie and Elaine Oliver were on our list. We talked to them, and they actually did something that most people wouldn't do. They were very honest with us. They thought, and maybe it's because of what they said earlier about the statistics about getting married young, they thought we should wait a little bit till we were a little older. I was only 21. Actually, we were both 21 when we were coming to them, asking whether or not they thought we should get married. By the time we actually got married, I was 22. April was 22 the next month. Yeah. But they made a very compelling argument about waiting, and we prayed about it. And we decided not to wait. It worked out. But I think their advice was good advice, and I think one of the reasons why they're such good mentors is because they don't just try to make you feel good about something or tell you what you want to hear. Right. I think that's the mark of a good mentor. If you find someone out there that is going to point you back to spirituality, point you back to the Bible and the things of God, and is going to be honest with you about stuff, that's what you need in your relationship. And if you don't have that, it's going to be a lot harder. But people are out there. The Olivers.
And it wasn't until the Olivers told us that we were young
that we even realized. I didn't realize until then. Like, what are you talking about?
I said, maybe we are.
I'm grown. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I said that was going to be the last thing. I just want to say that that's in the literature. People who marry before age 25 divorce at much higher rates as people who marry after age 25 because you're not yet playing with a full deck. Your center of judgment is not fully developed. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is not fully developed. So that's one of the reasons. But we all need the power of God.
But I tell people I got married at age 22. So God looks out for babies and fools. I'm not going to say which one I was, but here I am 36 years later. But again, that just speaks to why we respect this couple. And, I feel strange saying young couple, but they are young, but they've been married for a long time. And from the very beginning, they took their relationship very seriously and listened to what they're saying. They sought godly counsel. And too often people go into marriage just recklessly, and they ignore counsel, they ignore the signs, and then they will say, a year or two into marriage, I knew this was not right from the beginning. Don't ignore the signs and be willing to ask for counsel and pray about it and appreciate it and gather all the information you can. Now, that doesn't mean you should wait for like 100 years before making a decision, but it is important to seek that counsel.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful to all of you. This has been such a phenomenal conversation. I mean, the comments have just been on fire for the last hour. Everyone is in love with everything that you guys have been saying from the top to the bottom, and they are excited and really feel as though this is a beautiful passing of the baton. And so thank you all so much. Olivers, do you guys have anything? I want to give you guys the opportunity to promote, let the world know what you're doing. How can we get the book? Are you guys working on any other projects that the saints need to get their hands on?
Yeah, well, we are always working on projects about this book because it was published in the UK by Stanborough Press. It has just arrived in the United States now. Pacific Press, as a publisher here in North America, had to get the book from Stanborough Press. It's going to be in the ABCs before the end of this month, but I just spoke with the folk at Pacific Press, and they told me it was just arriving in Seattle on Friday, and sometime by the middle of the month, you will be able to find them in the ABCs. Now, you could also just get it directly from Stanborough Press. Go to their website, and order it. But if you can wait a couple of weeks, it'll be in the ABCs around North America, and you can access it.
That's Adventist Books.
Adventist Book Center.
Yeah.
And for those in the Washington D.C. area, that would be Livingwell. Yeah.
How do we get our signed?
Just do a drive-by.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that.
It does drive-bys, so
I love it. John and April, talk to us a little bit about what you've got going on. I know we've got an image that we're going to show right now of an interesting program you guys have coming up in the next couple of weeks.
We have a free live event that's going to be happening on February the 15th at 7 p.m. The title of it is Fire Up Your Sex Life. Now, before you get all crazy and all that kind of stuff, what we have found is that there is a correlation. It's not one-to-one, but there is a correlation between your sexual fulfillment and the health of your relationship in general. So it's possible that you could diagnose your relationship right now as not necessarily as healthy as it should be, partially because you look at your sex life as a married couple and you say, we're lacking a little bit here. So we actually want to share that with you, and we hope that you will join. It's completely free. You just go to, I think, sexlife.justjohnandapril.com. Yeah.
Sexlife.justjohnandapril.com.
That's right. Yeah.
And sign up.
Just sign up and you can join us. We have our podcast that we do on Fridays. We got our lives that we do on Wednesdays. So you can always jump in and just join us. Just John and April on every platform, basically.
Yes.
We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Well, we've got so much going on here at Message as well. Carmela, talk to them a little bit about a special that we've got coming out at the end of the month.
Oh my goodness, Claudia, you put me out there because it's special. First time, your Message magazine has been around. This platform has been around for 123 years. We trace our roots back to that period in time, post-emancipation, in which teams of people tried to come down and minister and come alongside communities of Black people. We trace our roots all the way back there. And since then, and I'm stopping saying this long line of strong leaders, long line of God-fearing leaders trying to make sure we have that message of hope and wholeness for our people. And so that documentary is coming out the end of the month, God willing, God bless. In fact, I'm trying to get out to go do some live shots on location. And so this is going to be very interesting, but it's a great program. And you got a stellar lineup for What's the Message? Is that right?
I do. But make sure you guys tune in on February 26th, 7 p.m., Finding Our Roots. We're going to be premiering an event that is really going to showcase interviews from past editors and the families of past editors, and really dive deep into the history of Message magazine. And considering it is Black History Month, we believe it is critical that we all celebrate and understand the beauty of our own institutions. And so this is the oldest Black Christian magazine in the country. And so we are going to make sure that the world knows about it. As Carmela said, we are also going to be celebrating Black History Month right here on the podcast. We had a phenomenal conversation with the Olivers and the Nixons to jump things off today. And throughout the month, we have amazing guests coming. So next week, we've got, right, Save.
That was a good catch, man. Yeah, you pretty nimble there.
Ninja moves out here, all right? We have the Dr. Caretha Mitchell. My light is not working with me. From slave cabins to the White House.
Wow.
She is a literary scholar at The Ohio State University, has done amazing research. And so I am so excited to welcome her to the podcast next week. The week after that, we will have Dr. Eric Walsh and Dr. Columbus Batiste, and we will get into slave food. And then, of course, we are going to close out the month as only we really can with the one and only, the Dr. Calvin Rock, and just interviewing someone of his caliber, just talking with him about, his experiences, his knowledge, his history, and getting his insights on how we move forward as a people, as a church, as a nation is going to be powerful. So make sure that you stay tuned for what we've got going on here at What's the Message. Every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, you will have an amazing conversation. That's what we promise to always bring you. And so, as I always say, thank you all so much for being with us. Thank you so much for joining us. And just know, same time, same place, just a different conversation. I'll see you next week.